All right, done. Let's get stuck into it. Welcome to Chapter 66 of the Strength Culture Presents Quantum Lifting podcast, where today we have a. I think you're our first international guest.
No, we had Brett Gibbs.
We had Brett Gibbs. Sorry, second.
We
had Brett Gibbs. Sorry, second. That was a long time ago. Second. First from Canada. We've got Bryce Krawcyzk with us today. Just give us a little background on yourself, Bryce, for the people that don't already know who you are.
Sure. So I'm an IPF powerlifter. I've been doing this competitively since 2012, and I've enjoyed some success, both raw and equipped. Won a silver medal overall at the IPF Worlds or Classic Worlds in 2016. Taken home a number of deadlift medals, both raw and equipped, and recently placed fifth at IPF Open Worlds in Dubai. As well, I run a coaching company, so I coach a bunch of athletes and manage a team of coaches under the umbrella of Calgary Barbell. You may have seen us on YouTube at some point. And that's pretty much me in a real quick nutshell.
That's the quick recap. We'll get to the raw and equipped stuff later, but just for the people that are listening that don't have any idea, raw is predominantly what we do at Melbourne Strength Culture, but then the equipped lifting, which we'll touch on later on, is pretty much, well, you can explain it later, but it's that all the ply, cheating as people say. But I guess something that Jamie and I wanted to touch on earlier was before Calgary Barbell. So obviously I know you through Calgary Barbell, so does Jamie. Most people in the strength world would know you through that. But before Calgary Barbell, there was another Bryce. Mm-hmm. You were in a rock band.
I was, yes.
A metal band. And I guess I just want to hear a little bit about your days through high school, how you got into your bands, then later on into finding yourself into powerlifting, which is a very niche sport in itself.
Yeah. So I guess I started playing in a band in probably like grade 10 or grade 11. And I started playing guitar. And I think the first show we played was like at a skate park. And we covered Megadeth's Symphony of Destruction and Slayer's Raining in Blood. And very shortly after that, everybody was like, okay, you shouldn't be playing guitar. So I dabble still, but I've never been really good at playing guitar. So I did find out I kind of had a knack for making all those weird, throaty, guttural, scream, yell, strange noises that metal fans enjoy so much. So I took that role in the band and bounced around from a couple different bands through the next 4 years or so. And then eventually found myself in Vancouver, hooked up with some guys who were a little bit more serious about it. Recorded a like decently professional album with them, with some like rubbed shoulders with some industry folk. Got to do some tours and play some decently big shows, and it kind of just fell off. And I think the thing for me that drew me from doing what I did in the band into powerlifting was there's sort of a parallel of like catharsis. And I feel like when you're up on stage screaming and yelling and swearing and like just getting people amped up and stomping and, just generally it's a huge release of aggression. And I think that goes really hand in hand with kind of how I lift and how I enjoy to lift. Like I just mosh around alone in my basement and like headbang before all my squat sets and just, that's how I have a good time. And I'm a pretty chill person outside of that. But I think that was part of what I found in powerlifting and in training in general that drew me to it from that world. As well as I found in the music industry, it was really a matter of who you knew and, getting lucky to get on the right show so that the right people saw you and put you on the next show. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff that I found with powerlifting. It was like, no, I can directly impact how good I am at this. And how good I am at this is the number, and it's very objective. And that ability to have that agency and to kind of take control of those things myself really made me fall in love with lifting and then eventually competing in powerlifting. So yeah, that's kind of how
I have heard that about the music industry, because in Melbourne there is quite a big like electronic sort of music scene. So a lot of DJs, and I've got a couple friends that sort of been trying, and it's very similar sort of thing to that. It's like who you know, and you got to be in the right place, the right time. And so that was where sort of for you that you lost that sort of passion for did you lose the passion, or was it more you just sort of sick of trying to? Jamie and I have a saying for it. We call it sucking dick. You gotta. That's our saying for trying to kiss people's asses. But so you sort of just lost that interest of like, I enjoy this, but I've got to chase too many people around to try and get what I want out of it.
A lot of it was that, and also just like relying on the band members and trying to get to the same point where, you know, like we had a lot of conversations that were to the tune of, okay, we're going to do this. Like, we're going to do this for our living. We're going to make this work, whatever it takes. And then, you know, we'd be planning a tour and I'm like, how long do you guys want to go for? 2 months, 3 months? And they're like, oh, I can't get more than 2 weeks off from work. And I was like, well, you know, like, which is it kind of thing.
If you want to be a rock star, you sort of need to take longer than 2 weeks off.
Yeah. I mean, I had dropped out of university at the time and was just bartending and just wanted to make music. That was it. You know, I was ready to live in a van for 3 months. Like, I didn't care. And other people were just, and that's not to discredit them in any way. I'm still on really good terms with all the guys, but I think they were just at different points in their lives where that was maybe not actually what they needed or wanted or where they were going, which is fair. But I think it just kind of led to things in the band stagnating for a while. Like, we played a really big show. We opened for the Devin Townsend Project. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's a big Canadian musician, played in a really sweet metal band called Strapping Young Lad, and then released, I don't know, 70 solo albums or some crazy shit like that. Like, dude's just always making music. Seems like a cool guy. So he played with them in this really cool band from Europe called The Ocean. And that was like the highlight of my musical career. There's probably 800 people in the audience, and we had these big banners made up with our logo, and it was awesome. And then after that, we just kind of didn't do anything for about 6 months. And at that point I was like, hey, I need to go somewhere else and do something else. So that was
What age were you when you played that show? Just to paint a picture, timeline here.
Probably would have been 2010, I want to say 2011.
So 10
somewhere in that range. Yeah. Because I was kind of lifting on and off in the band, but I was also drinking and smoking and, you know, not really sleeping and, you know, doing whatever else. So it didn't really go hand in hand.
Doing what 20-year-olds do. 21-year-olds
exactly.
do, don't they? Jamie and I have had our fair share of those days
enjoying
as well. But maturity, enjoying life, but maturity has slowly come upon us.
And surely kicked in.
Make smarter decisions with our lives now. So in between the band, you were sort of lifting weights a little bit, because I have seen some snapshots of you on YouTube where like photos have popped up of you and you look about 40 kilos lighter.
Yeah.
So you looked like a completely different person when you were in the band.
Mm-hmm.
And you were doing a little bit of lifting there. What kind of lifting was it?
Towards the end. I mean, I was lucky when I first got into lifting. It was some university buddies that were doing security at the bars that I bartended at. And one of the guys that I really connected with was, I guess, a power lifter or maybe not labeled as such or didn't compete. But he was like, oh, you know, you want to get big and strong? You got to squat, you got to bench press, you got to deadlift, and you got to overhead press. So I made some program where I started with a squat and then did a bunch of other stuff with my legs. And then another day I'd go in and bench and then do a bunch of press and pull stuff, and then so on and so on for the other two movements. And it was just kind of based around those. So pretty much right when I started lifting, I got into, you know, that kind of lifting. I just squatted a lot higher.
Nice.
And didn't pull sumo. Did you always pull sumo? I'm assuming no. Nah, yeah.
No, I didn't pull sumo really until like 2016. I started pulling sumo. And I just kind of like randomly did it.
Yeah, I've seen some videos of you in your first couple comps where you were pulling conventional.
Yeah.
And then how quickly did you realize how quick was it when you realized, like, I am a sumo specialist? Like, this is what I was made to do.
The sumo thing was really interesting because it was heading into Worlds in 2016, and that was right around the time this hip injury sort of cropped up for the first time. And I was having a pretty rough session and just like couldn't get things feeling right. My hip was bugging me and it just seemed to be getting worse. And I remember I was pulling, I don't know, 295 or 300 for a double or something, because we were getting pretty close to the day. So the load was pretty heavy as like a percent of my 1RM.
Yep.
And I thought, well, maybe I'll just try a set sumo. So I tried a set sumo, and it was probably 2 full RPE less than what it had been conventional, and there was no pain. So I was like, oh shit, like, okay, let's come back to this after the meet. There might be something here. And talk to Mike a little bit about it. And then it took me, I don't know, 3 months before I was breaking my conventional PRs sumo, and it just kind of kept going. So
it's no brainer.
It made sense pretty quick.
For it.
I know when you before you probably got into powerlifting per se, because most people that excel in powerlifting generally find themselves to be stronger than the average when they first start lifting weights, and then as with most people, you just do more of the things you enjoy and you're good at. Were you always significantly stronger or progressed faster than the average training buddy that you were around?
Yeah, the times that I did like get into any kind of structure, I often found myself kind of outrunning the people that I was training with. And I like to tell this story about the first time I ever deadlifted, and I just went in with a buddy, and he's like, "This is a deadlift." I was like, "Okay, let's do it." So we tried it, and he just kept piling weight on, and I think we got up to like 160 kilos, and he was like, "Oh, if you straighten your legs, it makes it harder." And I was like, "Oh, I'll do that." So I stiff legged 160 for like 8 my first day in the gym, pulling like my first day deadlifting. So I think, yeah, there's always been something that I just kind of wired to deadlift.
Was just good at deadlifting.
Yeah.
And your bench has always been your lagging lift. And I know you copped a little bit of criticism at the 2016 Worlds for the bench. And I know you said that affected you a little bit, like mentally. Has that ever, do you still hold that like deep, and like that's what drives you to sort of show these guys I can, because you're on the verge of benching 200, or you have benched 200 recently?
Yeah, I benched 195 yesterday.
Yeah.
And
nice.
I think 200's there. We'll take a crack at it about a week here.
You're showing those commentators that you're coming.
Yeah. I think at this, like at the time, I think being, that was my it was my second international competition. And, it did, when I watched the meet back and watched the stream and heard the announcer be like, "Yeah, just come back next year," kind of thing. I was kind of like, well, I did get a silver medal, so I'm doing okay. But yeah, like it did kind of sting a little bit. And I think at this point, no, I definitely don't hold any grudges or like, I've said things that I thought about afterwards and was like, oh, that might've hurt somebody's feelings. So I definitely am not going to like hold it against anybody. But I've come to realize that I really love when people think I can't do something, or when people tell me I can't or shouldn't be able to do something. And I really thrive on, I don't know if you can call it being the underdog, but like I kind of am the underdog in my head, and I'm going to prove them all wrong, and that kind of stuff. And it sounds silly and it sounds cliche, but like, yeah, I like that. Like I'm rebuilding my raw squat right now, and I don't know that I ever thought I did, and I'm sure there are people out there who didn't ever think I'd hit another big raw squat, and I'm starting to get there, and it feels really good. So those kinds of things definitely do fuel me in some way, for sure.
I definitely feel that. I definitely feel that, because we have little competitions here between the boys and put little bets on, and I do find there's a bit of it's not even money, it's just like dinner, but as soon as your pride is a little bit in the way, and it's like you just work that little bit harder just to beat your mate. So 100%.
Making games out of these endeavors, not just lifting, but I'm sure some like business stuff or like YouTube and all that sort of stuff, but like internally competing and proving people wrong and all that sort of stuff definitely makes things a little bit more fun to chase, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people will at least get that feeling as well, for sure.
Have you watched Michael Jordan, The Last Dance on Netflix?
No, I was talking we got together very far apart from some friends last night, because we're finally allowed to do that kind of thing. And that was one of the things that came up, was that documentary, and the person who was talking about it was like, I have no idea about basketball. I've never been a fan, but that show was really great. So I've heard good things. I'd like to check it out.
It is. Definitely. Yeah, we were saying, Jamie and I'm only 3 episodes in, so I've still got a while to go, but I'm kind of savoring it because it's really that good. But speaking of competitors and just being hungry, he is number one. Like, just his attitude, he just did not want to lose at all. He didn't care. I think it's really cool to see that, like, because being someone myself as well, like, he's obviously competing in powerlifting yourself. It's a cool, just a cool documentary, I feel. So definitely highly recommend that one.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Did you have something to say, Jamie?
Yeah, I was going to say, so we'll keep coming back to lifting, obviously, but something I've definitely I've wanted to discuss with you for a little while now is YouTube, and I'm sure you get it all the time, and the production quality that is the Calgary Barbell YouTube. First of all, I want to just say fuck you for making the bar so high for everyone else.
I'll pass that on.
Because I definitely, as a coach, YouTube. I made a speech at my university once, and I said that I don't have a university degree. I have a YouTube degree because I learned so much of what we do at Strength Culture from YouTube. And part of Strength Culture and our development, it's not even close to the scale that you guys are on at Calgary, but has been YouTube. We like YouTube. We like creating video content. As I said, it's where sort of I developed my skill set. So it's something that I wanted to go back into. I remember like 2 or 3 years ago, I came across a couple of your videos and I was like, is this guy got a full-blown production crew behind the scenes? What is going on here? And I actually got angry. I got angry at you because I was like, I'm not going to be able to create this because you can't, as soon as somebody puts the bar up, all of us, it's like Instagram content. Somebody, all of a sudden, Renaissance Periodization come out with their content, and then it's like, well, this is the new standard that you have to hit. Everyone has to do it. Otherwise, you just get swallowed by this globalized world. So how did that come about? How did Calgary Barbell...
I checked the numbers just quickly because I remember when I started working with you, it was like 15K subscribers. You're on 74K, and that's just in under 3 years. That's massive.
Yeah. So I mean, that whole thing came from Dylan, really. So Dylan's my business partner, and initially he and I had crossed paths a number of times going through school. He was kind of friends with some of the same friends that we would lift with, and I'd see him around. I actually saw him get escorted out of the gym once for filming in there without permission. They were very strict about that at the one school that I attended. And fast forward a little bit, and he's doing some vlogging and stuff like that, and really sort of developing a knack for his videography style.
Craft.
Yeah, exactly. And he I think it all stemmed from a project in an elective class because he's got a bachelor's in kinesiology, and took I can't even remember what class it would have been, some sort of psych class or something. They challenged him to go out of his comfort zone and make a video, and it just like clicked, and he was like, holy shit, I really love doing this. So again, same thing, like YouTube degree, right? Like he was completely self-taught, taught himself all this stuff about all the gear and how to use it and how to edit and where to find all these filters and how to build them and all this kind of stuff, and just went in 100% down the rabbit hole. And eventually he kind of came to the realization that, he didn't think his vlogs were ever really going to take off because while they might be sort of aesthetically pleasing because of his abilities behind the camera, in front of the camera, he's not a world-class lifter. He's not breaking records or competing at an international level. So he felt that was a drawback. And, he and I eventually started talking, okay, well, what if I was the, sort of
front man
lifter, or the face, the whatever in front of the camera. And, we kind of collaborated on it. And from that, the whole sort of Calgary Barbell thing was born in terms of our social media presence. So it's been a pretty interesting journey, and it's definitely something that right now I miss a lot because we don't have access to the gym. Dylan and I haven't been able to like collaborate on a lot of stuff. YouTube fitness content just isn't being consumed in the same levels that it was. And I think it's because a lot of people just can't go to the gym and
for
are
sure.
otherwise distracted. But It's a really fantastic creative outlet. So I'm really looking forward to getting back to that. But
well, that was my, and you've sort of alluded to it there, but have you, because I know Charlie has dealt with this, because we've been trying to create, well, we have created like little sort of like journeys or narratives through like prep comps and all that sort of stuff. And you're one of the names that we always come back to for good reason, being like, well, potentially there is something for this in the Australian market to do. And if we follow somebody, whether it be Charlie, whether it be Jason, one of our deadlift guys, and create sort of this narrative along a journey. But have you ever got to a point where it's felt like a second job, where you haven't really been that into it, or you feel like it becomes almost like a burden for you to film everything and talk about your training and all that sort of stuff? Does it ever get to that point, or do you just enjoy the process and that collaborative feel
100%,
with Dylan?
100%. It's definitely multiple times turned into just a drag.
Yeah.
But I think that's led to Dylan and I sort of reiterating our process a number of times. It used to be, for a while he would come in and he would be there for my whole 3.5 hour, 4 hour training session. And he would set up the camera between each shot and each set and go, stand where you're going to stand. Okay. Now, when you walk out, where are you going to be? Okay. Don't go yet. I need to adjust these lights. And then I would take however long I took to warm up, to do this, that, and the other thing. So we were adding a lot of time to each other's schedule. And it really just became way too much. And I think one thing that we started doing before the whole lockdown was I would kind of bring my camera and I would film my own lifting, and then he would edit it or come in on the days when we wanted to do, some B-roll here or there, or, add some little bits and pieces. And then we'd spend more time collaborating on those big sort of educational projects, like the So You Want to Be a Power Lifter, the series we did on equipped lifting, or the sumo deadlift tutorial. Because that doesn't really hinge on, okay, well, I'm also trying to concentrate on getting my best lifting in. So it's been an interesting, like, very sort of explorative and educational process for us as well. So,
yeah, well, it's a fantastic resource for anybody out there. And if you haven't seen the Calgary Barbell YouTube channel, highly recommend it. If you want some Warner Brothers grade production value in the style of lifting, highly recommend it.
Thank you. Yeah,
because we definitely do look up to it, and we have, because in the Australian market there is just not really anyone doing it. And one of our big assets of our gym is probably the environment and the culture. And we do want to try and start pushing that. And I think the only way we can push that is by getting YouTube content out. So we have, just before the lockdown started, we had one of our, who's Jack? How would you say Jack? Just what does he do?
A friend, similar position. He edits videos and stuff. He's a bit younger. Yeah.
So, coming out of lockdown, that's something that we're definitely, it was meant to start, but then obviously lockdowns happened. So we're starting to toy with that. And even myself, I'm starting to toy with, maybe I should put my training out there a bit more, but it's almost, you always have this like self-defeating thing of like, who would care about my training? But people do watch, people sit on YouTube and watch a lot of content. So people do care. But one thing I'm a little bit concerned about, I wanted to ask you was, do you get much hate, and how do you handle it? Because obviously there's a lot of love.
You do cheat. You cheat in every aspect of the sport. So I guess
straps,
you're copping it somewhere.
Sumo, equipped. Yeah.
Equipped. Do you get much hate, and how do you sort of handle it?
So honestly, like, I find I fixate on that stuff more than the positive stuff sometimes. It's really hard not to. You get, you post a video, or maybe, for example, we did a sort of what is equipped lifting that we put together, this big video for Alan Thrall's channel. And, it was probably 60 to 70% really positive. Like, this is cool. Like, it's not for me, but great video and stuff like that. And then there were just 20 or 30% that were like, fuck that, screw this guy, what an idiot. And that kind of stuff, like, it gets under your skin a little bit. And I think one of the big things for me was reminding myself that I should probably focus on the positive stuff. Like, the 60% of people, I should go through and just like reply to them and be like, thanks. Like, if you like this, check this out, and blah, blah, blah. And just put more like energy into focusing on those kinds of things. Sometimes you just have to laugh. I did a video about how I made a cut down to, I think it was the first time I was under 90 or under 100 kilos in a long time. My first like real cut ever. And this guy, I still can't believe it to this day, just laid into me like some of the finest chirps. I almost admired the lengths to which this guy went, but he said something along the lines of, "You call this a cut?" He's like, you're chunky or flabby in all the wrong places. He's like, if you think you're cut right now, you must do sumo in the off season. You look like a cafeteria lady. And like all these things just went off. And I was like, first off, who hurt you? I'm sorry. And then part of that has been like kind of leaning into that. Like you'll see, I don't know if you follow me on social media, you've probably seen me reference my cafeteria lady physique, shit like that. It's like, I don't know, people think that's hilarious. So let's roll with it. And now, you know, that's part of my brand. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. I'll take that. The other thing with YouTube, the YouTube comment section is, and Charlie and I have discussed this multiple times, is the bottom of the barrel of social media. I don't know what it is about YouTube, but it must be the longer format content or something, because I get stuff for my calves constantly. Like people literally just, and I'm like, man, I'm doing this great educational piece about assessing the shoulder and all this. And like the comment section filled with 20 comments of people like, this has helped me, blah, blah, blah. And then there's this one prick who's like, this guy's got sticks for legs. It's like, fuck this guy. Like,
and then you're lying in bed at night like, do I have sticks for legs? God damn it.
We copped it recently with the RPE video. We put up, Jamie and I put up a little 15-minute discussion on RPE and how to like use, and some guy just ripped into us. He's like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. RPE is only for advanced lifters. You shouldn't be promoting it for people that aren't advanced. And we're like, Jesus Christ. But
then he referenced Mark Ripperto and was like, oh, Mark Ripperto says this, and like quoted him, like RPE should only be used for advanced. And I'm like, Rip's the GOAT or something. And he's like, so you think he's the GOAT, but you don't believe in what he says? And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't agree with his comment, man. Yeah. It turned into like this dialogue back. I was like, fucking YouTube, man. What is going on here?
Yeah.
They are the bottom of the barrel.
Sometimes it's best to avoid.
Well, that's the thing. We always come back to the thing, speaking of Michael Jordan, is Michael Jordan sitting there commenting in the YouTube comments? No, Michael Jordan's out there winning and getting shit done. So, like, you got to sort of, obviously, someone like yourself, we hopefully put ourselves in that case. We're hopefully out there making moves and making waves. And I don't know about you, but my philosophy is I will only comment something if it's positive.
Yeah.
Only, ever. Like, I'm like, if I'm going to comment on someone's YouTube video or Instagram, it has to be something positive because I appreciate what they've done or something, because I just think there's no room for that negative shit. Like, it doesn't do any good, and it has to be coming from a place of insecurity. Like, and
it's just such a time sink. Even if you disagree with somebody on like a philosophical level and it's not personal,
no point.
If you get into an Instagram argument with somebody, like there goes half your day. There goes, all of your thoughts, because you get so emotionally invested in something like that, and you just waste so much on it. And then you agree to disagree at the end, anyways. You're like, okay.
Yeah, we can never really change someone's opinion.
If the video itself didn't change their opinion, where you've put all this time and effort and resources into trying to get your point across in a 5-10 minute video, I don't think a few comments is going to change their mind in the end. But yeah, so the YouTube channel, what can we expect going after lockdown? Is there any plans with the YouTube? Are you looking to do some like different content, or is there anything in mind? Any goals that you guys have set?
There's a couple things that we're trying to work through. One of them would be the sort of companion guides to the sumo deadlift guide that we made. We'd like to make similar videos for the squat and for the bench press. Just trying to make a bit of a comprehensive look at the lifts in just simple language, but in enough detail that you could watch it a number of times and kind of pick up different things. So we'll probably follow a similar format to that, but do the sort of companion guides to that. And we have some like really dumb joke videos that we've been just stashed away in the back pocket for a while. And I think Dylan and I are both craving that like creative release. So you might see some like really, really, I don't even know, just like strange sense of humor stuff come out that we think is funny.
Some personality.
Yeah.
I remember you put up a video once of you reading a book.
Yeah.
And
Full
like
day of reading.
the whole day, the whole video is just you reading a book. And I was like,
I think it was April Fool's, and we've had a bunch of people ask me to do a full day of eating. And my whole thing is like, I'll never do that video. I'm happy to make some nutritional videos. We've done some with sort of covering how like tricks and tips for setting your macros, some of the ways that I've approached this bulk in order to get more calories in.
Yeah.
But a full day of eating, like as it's traditionally done, is just some influencer sitting in a mall. Like, this is what I ordered from the food court. And like, who's that?
You've never done that
for, you know?
You've never done that, have you? You
No.
didn't succumb to the pressure?
No. So I said from the get-go, I will never do a full day of eating video. And, you know, people continue to ask. So for April Fool's, I was like, what if we do a full day of reading?
Crazy.
So I sat down with a book, and I think we filmed 14 or 16 minutes of it. And then Dylan found creative ways to kind of cut and loop it to make it go on for, I think we put up like an hour and a half video.
That's mad.
And it was literally just me sitting there reading.
That's so good. And it would have been the most the most well shot theatrical fucking angles, the Calgary barbell, the style.
Some like 4K crops and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
It's I don't know if you know Max Tuning, but Max Tuning I think's done 120 full day of eatings. So he's the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
And I mean, that's great. Like if that's your content and you're a vlogger and you know that's what people want to consume, then sweet, do your thing. Like no shade.
Yeah, definitely.
Look, I can't lie. I used to watch Eddie. We have a bodybuilder in Melbourne called Eddie Ung. Okay. And I used to watch his vlogs for 5. When we first opened Strength Culture, I used to love his vlogs, and I was like, I want to be a vlogger. And now I've changed.
Yeah, I think I went through a phase, like when we first started putting out our training logs and stuff, where I probably watched Max Tuning videos like every day for 2 or 3 weeks, because it was for whatever reason like captivating enough, and I was interested enough to kind of follow along for a while, and was also just kind of seeing what other people do and how people make these things interesting. And, you know, so yeah, I mean, it's a different type of content. I don't think it's what we want to produce, but.
Yeah, well, I was sitting there watching his videos, and it's like him walking his dogs, then driving to the gym, taking his pre-workout, doing leg extensions. And I'm just like, what? And I got to a point where I was like, what the hell am I watching? Like, and I haven't gone back for a long time.
I could be living this.
Yeah,
I could be walking my dogs. Holy shit.
So speaking of eating, I want to, because I know you've put on a fair bit of weight recently.
Yeah.
How have you felt?
Yeah, you cafeteria lady.
you are looking, you're looking thick.
Getting there, yeah. So I've filled up the 120s now. I think the last couple times I weighed in, I was like 120.3, 120.7. So trying to think of when I kind of made that decision. Probably be about a year ago now. So gone up about 13 kilos in a year. Like we went hiking the other day. It wasn't super successful because we were in so much snow. Just shoulder season hiking is just not like you kind of have to be open to just turning around at some point if it gets a little too dicey. But I feel okay, honestly. Like I haven't seen my like work capacity affected in terms of, you know, needing to take longer set rests and stuff. I've always been kind of on the shorter side of that kind of stuff. And I mean, I take my dog out back almost every day, and we've got big hills and hikes and walks and dog park and a lot of that kind of stuff I do regularly, which I think helps keep me in a good spot. And I went and got like my cholesterol, my blood pressure and all that kind of stuff checked recently, because my dad's got a history, or we have a family history of blood pressure, I think, or cholesterol, one of the two anyways. So I got all that checked, and I'm great. I'm in a good spot. I'm totally healthy. So, and that is definitely a concern for me, right? Like I'm not trying to trade my health for my total. But obviously if I can get a bigger total and be relatively comfy at 120, then that's even better. But so far, yeah, I feel quite good. A little bit slower, definitely. I think I held my wife's pace back a little bit more on the hike, but I didn't die. So
Yeah. How did you go with eating up? How many calories were you on when you were trying to get up to 120? Because that's you. I remember when a few years ago you were only at like 108 around there. So 12 kilos. How many calories were you on?
Honestly, it
Getting up to that way?
hasn't been a crazy amount of food for me. I think currently I'm eating the most that I have with my nutrition coach, Mark Morris, and I'm at about 47 or 4,800 a day. So it's not like an incredibly huge amount of food, at least from my perspective. And maybe I just have a really skewed perspective on that. But I didn't have a hard time gaining weight once I got things normalized. Once I started working with a nutrition coach, and was like, okay, here's my baseline. Then we were just like, knock it up a bit, ratchet it up, and it was just like little bit by little bit, and the weight went up, and it just everything kind of fell into place. And so I went up to like 113 or 114, and then kind of maintained for a while. And then I went up to 116 or 117, maintained for a while. And I think each time I've maintained, I had maybe a tiny little bit of sort of favorable recomposition. Just feeling a little bit better at that weight. If nothing else, just kind of stabilizing, getting used to living at that size. And now, full 120 and haven't had any issues really.
No cafeteria lady comments?
Oh yeah, I also take my shirt off a lot less than I maybe used to in our old videos.
You've gone up a level. Because that's one thing I've always struggled with. I hear 4,700 and I'm like, because I'm eating 4,000 at the moment. And I still find it, some days it's just a burden. I'm just like, I don't want to eat anymore. And have you ever gotten to points like that where you're just like, I do not want to eat anymore?
Oh yeah, often.
Yeah.
What's the main strategies you got? Give us two cafeteria lady drink them down.
Liquid calories. I have iced tea powder flowing through my veins. I drink
what are your go-to liquids?
So I drink like an 800 or 900 calorie coffee every morning. I put like 5 ounces of whipping cream and 2.5 scoops of whey protein in my coffee every morning. Ice cream is really good. Like it's nothing crazy, like I just kind of fill in the gaps with super high calorie foods. I cook everything in oil and butter. And, if I'm going to have a chicken breast, I'm going to bread it and stuff it with ham and cheese. Going to make Brussels sprouts. I'll probably smother them in
butter,
maple syrup, and put some bacon in them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Just make things higher calorie. I haven't really gotten caught up in the whole, like trying to do it super cleanly, but at the same time, like, I don't just eat pizza for every meal. So it's, I guess, finding a balance and trying to have maybe 70% decent quality foods, and the rest are just like get calories going.
You eating your fruits and veggies? Still getting your fruits and veggies in?
As much as I can. That's probably still something at this point that I could work on once more.
Yeah, I noticed that was one thing I noticed anecdotally was when I was cutting, that started last year, is that I was just eating a lot better because you kind of have to, because you're on less food. So you opt for more vegetables. I kind of felt better, but you also don't lift as much. So there is that trade-off with.
I went through like a period where I really started feeling shitty from just like swinging too far the opposite way and just like too much ice cream and too many pretzels. And what I kind of worked out with Mark was we tried to get a healthy fat source and a serving of fruits and or vegetables every time I ate. So if I was going to go put down half a pint of ice cream, I was damn well going to have some carrots and hummus and almonds with it. And that sort of a strategy of just like adding in some good quality food with every meal or every like intake of food seemed really, really helpful for me, and kind of got me back to a point where now, it's maybe not every time I eat, but it's all my major meals. And, you can probably always eat more fruits and vegetables, but
yeah, I don't think you can have enough fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. How so we've touched on it a little bit here, but how's everything been through the closure in terms of the business, your training, your life? Like you said, like the hikes and stuff. Like it sounds like you guys are in winter, or at least coming out of winter, I'm assuming, in the Northern Hemisphere as we're entering into it. But how's the past couple months been for you guys on the other side of the world there?
I mean, in Canada, things are still pretty locked down, especially like in the city that I live in. We were supposed to open restaurants last week. And the day before everything was supposed to open, they were like, actually, Calgary and this other small town where there's a bunch of cases, you guys are staying closed. So
Yeah.
I think it really screwed a lot of restaurants here, and that's more my wife's world. She kind of works in the industry and sells wine to restaurants. But I was lucky early on. My business owns a fair bit of the powerlifting equipment at the gym, and I started thinking about like, okay, if things close, I can't train. And I just about had like a panic attack at breakfast the one day, thinking about not being able to train, because that's probably, I would be in a very bad place mentally. So I was able to get condo board approval to put an ER rack and an Alico bar and a bunch of plates in my basement and go down there and bang around. There's just this big sort of concrete open area on the bottom floor of our building that nobody ever uses for anything. And the condo board was like, yeah, sure, go for it. So my training hasn't been really affected otherwise, other than, being relatively minimalistic and sort of specific. But that's also not a huge change for me. Business has been good. I'm fortunate enough to coach a lot of coaches, a lot of gym owners, and a lot of people with, that they take it quite seriously. A lot of my athletes. So they either, found a way to make it happen. I got a couple clients with racks set up in their living rooms, and, they have to deadlift with a tempo and things like that, but I'd say, probably 70 or 80% of my clients, I was able to kind of work something out with. There's a few clients who just, can't do anything. And that's why we have a Discord channel with free, at home, no equipment stuff. And yeah, life-wise, I mean, I've definitely had a few of those days where you just kind of feel it all pile on and you're like, shit, you just lose all motivation. You don't want to do anything because you can't do things the way you normally do. And, definitely fortunate in a lot of ways, but I don't think that, I think there are a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm still working, so I should never feel bad about anything right now. I don't have any right to. And it's like, well, just because you still have a job doesn't make your feelings invalid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been mostly good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that I've noticed is and I found myself in that category is because I do have equipment to train. It's kind of like, but at the same time, my motivation's been quite low, but you're like, oh, but I have equipment. I should feel good. There's so many people that don't, but, and a lot of my clients who have equipment too are going through the same sort of thing where they're feeling a bit like shit, motivation is down. And I'm sort of just reiterating to them that it's okay to feel that way. It doesn't matter if you have equipment and other people don't, because it's like we're going through a big sort of unique traumatic experience, and everyone's going to handle that in their own sort of way. And I know it was a conversation you and I had about the why we lift thing, and that really helped me sort of calibrate. And I want to bring that up just because if anyone's listening to this that might find that useful, but something that we had a conversation about was why we actually lift. And it sort of made me reflect, and I sent you an email about why I lift, and it just brought back why I actually did this and why I started doing it years ago and why I continue to do it. And that was a really good reflection period that helped me sort of recalibrate why I actually lift weights. And I found that useful. And if anyone is out there that's listening, I think it's a really good task to sit for 5 minutes and go, why do I do this? In a time where maybe you are feeling a little less motivated or derailed because of the whole COVID-19 thing. But I also find that it's very unique that we're all going through this together. Like on a global standpoint. So being able to talk to you or talk to people overseas and be in it together is a very unique experience. We've probably not ever really had that in our lifetime. It's usually like a big traumatic experience happens. It's usually just in that city or that country. And I'm finding that it has been interesting in that regards and probably brought people together on that level.
Definitely. Yeah. And yeah, I think that just thinking about your why and like what got you started and why you sort of fell in love with all of this is a pretty good way to kind of reconnect with some of that motivation or some of that. I think it can even guide your programming right now. If you got into lifting to have fun and like break a sweat and, do some of that kind of stuff, it's like, well, let's program to do that. Like let's go back to the basics. Let's get you to the point where you feel like you're, fulfilling some of those deeper, needs or wants. And let's just start there. We don't have to be, nobody's competing anytime soon. So what can we do to make you feel like you're being more successful with your training so that you want to do your training? Because doing anything right now is going to be better than nothing.
That's the thing. And you as a coach, you want to sort of make people leave their session feeling like it's a good thing. It's a positive thing, not another sort of negative in this time where there's not much else going on. Yeah. How's your training been going, Jamie?
My training has been sitting on this chair, building content. I have done nothing for 2 months. I'm just hanging back in the back of this conversation here. The funny thing is, and because like we've got the gym here, and we did the same thing as you were discussing, like give your equipment, or you've taken equipment home, but I'm sure you've probably given some equipment to some of your members as well. Some of the longer serving members who have stuck by you, so you stick by them in this time. And it actually turned out that I've given myself 50 kilo dumbbells. That's all I have access to in the gym. I don't have a barbell. I have an SSB bar, a really shitty one, but no plates to put on the bar. Okay. And I have a sled track. That's my equipment. Everybody else's. Charlie took bloody $10,000 worth of equipment, put it in his garage. But yeah, so that's my excuse. I don't have an excuse. It's pathetic, but I've been very busy.
You would not have trained regardless of the equipment.
It's better in other people's hands. It's definitely better in other people's hands.
There you go. Yeah.
So I want to ask, when this is all said and done, have you been to Australia before?
No, I have not ever.
All right.
No.
Are there plans for you to come to Australia? Well, obviously, once restrictions and everything sort of goes back to normal, but is it somewhere you would like to come to?
Oh yeah, I'd love to go. I'd love to make my way out there. I'm sure my wife would too, and it'd be one of those places to go and spend some time, and who knows, maybe do a seminar or two, and travel around and meet a bunch of people and train at a bunch of different gyms. And I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do in life so far. Has been, I had the pleasure of doing some stuff when I was in Dubai and then Belgium on that same trip, toured around the UK a little bit, and just going to, I feel like the strength culture and the strength world are such, just 99.9% of the people involved are just freaking awesome. Just the world round, they're all the same kind of people. And you just, you kind of feel like home at all these different places, and you get to experience different cultures while still having that kind of anchoring and that thing that, bridges maybe the cultural divide a little bit. So, that's been probably one of my favorite things that I've gotten to do, with, the company, with my job and that kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to getting back to that. Yes, Australia is definitely on my list.
Where would you like? Do you know much about Australia geographically? Like, do you know?
No, I'm terrible geographically.
Nah,
I'm just going to lay that out there to preface any discussion that may come forward.
Just roll into Sydney or Melbourne and then just go from there.
Probably, other than Charlie, because I remember when Charlie first signed up, because we haven't actually said it, but Charlie's one of your athletes, has been for 3 years, 2.5 years, something like that.
Nearly 3 years. It'll be September or August. Will be like 3 years.
Yeah. When Charlie was, he came in one day, he's like, I want to get a coach. Like, who should I go with? And your name was one of them because of the YouTube channel. And there was a couple others, and he watched one of the videos. He's like, I like his tattoos or something. I think that was the deciding vote. Nothing to do with your intellect or experience or anything like that. It was your tattoos, the colorful pictures on the tuck shop arms. But
I'll take it.
And then when I remember we used to go to comps, and everybody was like, oh, you've got Bryce. Like, it was like this big thing to have like Bryce as the coach or whatever. Oh. And it wasn't, and we're like, yeah, it's not that hard to like get a coach. Like, you just email them like, hey, have you got any spots on your roster? Like, can you coach with me? Do you have any other Aussies or long-term Aussie clients or?
Not long-term. I've had a few on and off, but I don't think I have any Aussies right now. No.
Just Charles.
Do you have any other? Obviously, you'd probably have some from the US.
You'd have but any majority, I would imagine.
Any outside of North America, so like Europe or?
Yeah, definitely. I got a Swiss client. I've got a guy in Hungary. You're gonna put me on the spot. Yeah, those are the two that come to mind because I just finished sending them updates like before this podcast. But yeah, I mean, I'm lucky enough to work with people from kind of all over the world, so it's pretty cool.
And most of them would be either Canada or the US. Most of the guys.
I'd say I'm like half North America and half elsewhere. You know, spread across. There's a coach from the UK that lives and trains in Dubai that I met when I was down there. I'm working with right now. Yeah, it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, it is fascinating because within Australia, most people tend to opt just for Australian coaches or people that they know. Mm-hmm. And I said to people, I was like, just message someone. Like most people, like we put people on this pedestal. Like I'm sure if you just messaged Mike Teixeira, like he would either say yes or he'd go, actually, one of the other RTS coaches can coach you. It's not. They're not, you know, Michael Jordan, these like untouchable people. Like they're just sort of dudes that lift weights, and I'm sure they'd love to have coach other people lift weights. And if they're full, they'll probably just direct you on to someone else. Like, but we sort of, I think in Australia, there's this like thing, like, oh, just message people, just message someone. I'm sure they'll coach you.
Yeah. My email's readily available and I do answer people's emails.
I have noticed that the Calgary team, like your team of coaches, has been growing in the past couple of years. How have you got it structured now? How many are on board? And
there's myself, Taylor, he's in Eastern Canada, Danny, who's here in Calgary, and those two and myself cover most of our online business. Then we have Sandra, who does mostly in-person stuff. Her and Danny are running some sort of like intro to powerlifting, intro to strength training, or were before all of this went down. Courses. They're also doing like they call it a women of steel event, where it's, you know, the gym's kind of locked up and it's sort of an environment for women to come in and like try out all this kind of stuff with other women and just sort of to create a culture for that. And then just Dylan, who's our creative director. So he's in charge of all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's just myself and the three others.
Do you yourself do much in-person coaching or any at all, or is it mainly just all online now?
Honestly, it's kind of just on a one-off basis. Yeah. You know, if somebody emails me and they're coming in from out of town, and they want to just do a session to get a look at some technical stuff, or they want to like try out equipment or, you know, something like that. A lot of the times I'll take that kind of stuff. But other than a couple of clients I've had for probably 4 or 5 years that I still see here or there, kind of end of the block, we'll do a session together to wrap things up and see where things are at, kind of stuff. But majority, I would say 90% or more is all online for me at this point.
Yeah. And it wasn't something that I knew only up until recently. I think you said on another podcast or maybe one of your videos, but you don't actually own the gym in which you're in, the Strength Edge.
No.
It's another gym and you're just a business that operates within that with obviously a decent sized area and stuff, which I thought was pretty cool as well. Because you've created definitely a global brand within our industry without owning a space or whatever. I think that's a bit of a misconception that a lot of people have, that you have to get to a point where you can own a building or something and call it your own, where if you have a good environment around you and a good area to train in, that's all you really need, which isn't it. It's cool. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really fortunate to meet Andrew, the guy who owns the Strength Edge, early on. And we kind of went into business together immediately. So from the get-go, as soon as, you know, it was called Smash Strength initially because we rented a space in the back of another gym, and Calgary Barbell was my personal training company. So it was me and another guy that I had worked with at the box gym that we worked with previously. We brought over as many of our clients as we could without stepping on too many toes. And that was it, you know, like we had a couple of members who were mostly strongmen at that point, and then myself and my clients, and it just grew from there. So, you know, he kind of took care of the physical space and I took care of a lot of the sort of marketing and branding and leads and, you know, kind of bringing more people into the gym. And it's been a really, really awesome symbiotic relationship where we've been able to kind of benefit each other by being in that same space.
Yeah, I think the fact that there's a massive gorilla on the wall is why people sort of assume that it is
Well,
yours.
so there's the Calgary Barbell Gorilla, and then the whole other wall says the Strength Edge.
Yeah.
But I definitely preferentially take photos facing a certain way, and there's angles that we'll try to get to show off our brand more, right?
Deception.
Yeah, for sure.
That's it. Yeah. Arian, we've been going on about an hour, so I'm going to finish up with one question before we wrap up. If you weren't a power lifter, and you could be any other athlete in the world, what would you be? Just a random question.
Oh man,
out there.
That's a great question. What other athlete would I be?
Any athlete, top of their game. So you could be like, Michael Jordan, or who's the quarterback from New England Patriots? He's on our wall. Tom Brady.
Tom Brady's a monster. Is it the Bucks now? Traded.
What's some weird fringe sport with no money in it?
Curling.
I had another question. JP, John Paul Krawcyzk, like I'm sure you know John Paul Krawcyzk. He makes a running joke that he's made more money from chess than he'll ever make from powerlifting competing. So he calls himself a more successful chess player than powerlifter. And when you was at the start of all this, you're talking about your band and stuff. And then you're like, yeah, we played in front of 800. I'm like, well, you must have been getting paid from this. Like you wanted to do tours and stuff. I'm assuming removing
we made enough
the business,
to be able to get to the next place usually.
Yeah, removing the business of coaching and YouTube and all that sort of stuff. But just you as a power lifter, I'm assuming you've made more money, but you may have sponsors, so maybe it's not the same. Have you made more money from powerlifting competing or band? Music?
Probably from powerlifting. Yeah. Like the couple of times that I've won a little bit of money probably equals out to more than any share of anything that I took from the band, because it was like, okay, we got enough for gas and a 6-pack, like, and a pack of smokes for the 5 of us. Let's start driving.
All right, so you're a more successful powerlifter than musician. Fair enough.
Than chess player.
Yeah.
Nice. Well,
in terms of other athletes, I want to say like a pool player or something.
A pool player, crazy.
I think pool's cool, and or like darts. People make a lot of money playing darts, right? Like
darts is massive. The darts in Leeds is like huge. They get thousands of people that they all dress up, and
I
don't know how they
for the money, because like I'm a power lifter. Right? I obviously don't care about money, but like my mom has one of those electronic dart boards. And every time the family gets together at my mom's place, we'll just like sit in the basement and play darts for hours, and that's a blast. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with
in the 2019 World Darts Championship, they had £2.5 million prize money. So I would go darts too. Darts is the way to go.
That's what it
darts.
Is.
Nice.
We'll finish it with where can people find you? Yeah.
So I am on Instagram. I'm Bryce_CVV, and Calgary Barbell everywhere. So Calgary Barbell on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, CalgaryBarbell.com. It's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah. You can
definitely
reach out to us there.
Definitely head over to the YouTube channel if you haven't. Anyone that's listening, because that is great content. Have a suss of his TV production quality content. Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it, and
thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Onwards and